Hi, Peter Stoll, clarinetist in Toronto, Canada here. Those are some examples of different kinds of multiphonics played on a B-flat clarinet. So I'm sure you've probably heard of the term multiphonic, and it basically means you're tricking these instruments that normally play one note after the other to playing multiple sounds. So there are different ways of doing this and different ways of handling it as a composer, and I want to look at two main ways here. So I'm going to switch over. I've got a bunch of screen captures from some cool info on the web, and I have to flip around a little bit because if I move these around, they seem to resize. So here's what I wanted to say. If you're going to do the type of multiphonic that has definite pitches, you want to give the player an idea of how to finger it. If you found this somewhere, in a book or on the web, or you play an instrument and you sort of found one, give the player something to work with. It's unbelievable if you get a part with someone, they've indicated, a G sharp and then an A, a high D, quarter tone flat, and you have no idea how they got there. Here's an example of a good pictorial fingering diagram, in this case for a bass clarinet. So that's useful. So, and I'll just start to flip around here. Here's another example. Here's a literal example of how you could drop in this kind of fingering in the actual music. So I'll try to play this. And obviously the darkened holes are, you close them, and the ones that are open are lighter. That's the first two, and that's what they sound like. And you'll notice that sometimes these things work at all different dynamics. Sometimes they're really tied to a specific one. So how do you know? I'd recommend something like, let's see if I can find it here, this. And this is from, here, I'll just flip back, this book or a similar one. So this is, originally I got this by E. Michael Richards, and then he also wrote one for the clarinet. So separate bass and clarinet. Now he's turned it into a giant multimedia website with examples for both. And to go back to the diagram here, it's fantastic because it just lays it right out for me. So if I take my bass clarinet and finger, I assume he means low C, and then the first side key. And you see that right here, where's my cursor? Right here, he's showing you, he's telling you what dynamic range is this good for. And there's various other, I don't know what these other codes mean, I forget now, but this is the key thing. So don't write this super loud because it may not sound. So just flipping along here, this is an example of a different way of handling multiphonics. So here, you're just telling players, play something sort of wild, usually at a loud dynamic. And you can do it with the Z sign. I've seen people do a big M above or the note or where the Z is here, put the M in over the note staff, or an M in a square. And of course, if you're using those things and you're not saying above it multiphonic, as this composer did, son fondu, then you have to put a key in at the beginning of the part so I know. So here, on that, you get this sort of didgeridoo harmonic sound on a clarinet. So it's not as specific with pitches, but you certainly get the effect. And this is the one we did. Here's another way to notate this if you don't want to get into writing. If you can find this kind of printed diagram that you can use, and now I think on the web you can. Great, or you write it in. This is clearly handwritten above these, or you use this little text sort of use of the keyboard, and that's fine. I know what this means. It means close the thumb hole on the first three of the left hand, excuse me, of the clarinet. And this is important. When they say G sharp, C sharp, I would have put a diagonal slash between them, or a dash. The clarinet doesn't overblow at the octave, and we have various C sharps with various C sharp keys. So when you tell me G sharp, C sharp, you're naming this in two different registers. It should actually, I think, say C sharp, G sharp. But in any case, I know exactly what that means, and so then you get. Now, as you can hear, when a player is playing one of these, it takes a lot of practice, and the results sometimes are, a little wavery. And so you just want to consider carefully, and maybe ideally you're working with a player where you can sort of say, does this work at this dynamic, rather than just plopping it in and hoping that, everything works. And sometimes in some of these books, what works for one player in one setup may not for another. There's an old book by Bruno Bartolozzi called New Sounds for Woodwinds. It was one of the first to have, just like this, to have these sort of tables of these fingerings. But the clarinet has an extra key that most of ours don't, that I guess they use in Italy. So that doesn't work so well. The ones I'd recommend: E. Michael Richards, The Clarinet of the 21st Century, or New Sounds for Clarinet by Philip Rehfeld, Rehfeldt. So there you have Multiphonics.